Alright folks, hello and welcome back to Downstage Gaming. I'm your host Josh, and this is part 8 of our Let's Play of Head as Code. When we last left off, let's see, we went to Jasmine, we went to explore a little laboratory place, and the main thing of note there is that there's some weird room that we didn't get into that we think is probably going to be important later. And so on our train ride back, as we're talking with E and and E, however, it's alright. We were having a discussion, and then Jasmine was being all like, hey, we can't tell them anything. Then we had this really weird moment up here with Jasmine, where Jasmine was being weird and being like, hey, don't you trust me? I don't know, it gave off some bad vibes, but we didn't have the time. As quickly as the situation turned into something out of a bad romance movie, it was cut like a knife through butter. Dazed, I pulled away, almost embarrassed, sitting back into the couch. In the room, two figures had walked in. Way to kill the mood, A&E. Following after them, two more came in, Ray and Marco. They were both fine. My Joker friend, looked at me strangely, and I realized I was still somewhat awkwardly sitting down. Thanks, Jasmine. All of you are back. I'm so glad you're fine. Yeah, we're back. No signs of the blonde furies? Furries? I had to calm down a little. Ray's tone made me feel in danger, even if there was no danger at all. Why did I feel so tense? Was it because of Jasmine's actions? I stood up to prepare for a stroll. Needed to clear my head, and the best way was to stretch my legs. I'm just gonna have a little look around for a bit. You don't mind, right? No, that's fine. Go for it. She gave me a complicit smile, as if she was aware of the effect she had on me. Meanwhile, Marco dropped himself onto the couch, taking my previous spot. Now it's time for me to weirdly be hit on. He could enjoy the heat I left behind if he wanted, sure. Ray sat on the opposite side to it, apparently glad he finally got a comfortable seat since he'd only had a stool before. Didn't know which station they explored, but didn't look like he'd been comfortable there either. I can't imagine Ray being comfortable most places. I left the lounge. I thought perhaps I could use this time to take the train and revisit some old stations we previously saw. Is that allowed? Don't you have to go with two people? Cutting my thoughts short, the old man joined me in the lobby. Ah, yes, my legs could use a stroll as well. Shall we go? Do you want to head to a station or something? I squinted a little, incapable of hiding my suspicion. This was very ill-timed. Don't you see? I want to be alone right now. There's so much romance drama in my life, eh? I did want to be alone doing this so nobody else would think I was exploring a new station. Why was A here? Was he hiding something too? This was a little dangerous all of a sudden. Perhaps Jasmine was right. Or maybe Jasmine's paranoia was spreading to me. Usually I was the scaredy cat, not Jasmine. This thought pattern should have been what I came up with, not something she suggested. I sighed to myself. The moment one started doubting everything, they wouldn't be able to trust anything. The old man arched a brow, unable to read my mind. Well... Did I go with him, or stay here? I couldn't awkwardly pause for much longer. The choice was between going alone with him, or staying where everyone else was. One seemed more dangerous than the other. Jasmine's behavior weighed heavily on my mind, too. There was something a little wrong with her. If I stayed, perhaps something bad might happen, too. Something bad might happen, such as getting into a real relationship. Women, am I right, boys? God. I was so afraid of commitment. I scratched the side of my head and my indecision. I mean, you know, there are many kinds of relationships, Simon. As long as you communicate it with your partner, it doesn't have to be like a... I shook off Jasmine's warnings, and after making up my mind... Now, see, again there, felt like, hey, here's where you would normally make a choice, but we're being forced down a particular path right now. Whatever this old man did, I could handle. I was fit, 24 years old, and I wasn't a coward, damn it. Until I was, at least. Wanted to know more about him either way. I also want to know more about A, so I'm fine with this. Perhaps this would give me an idea for the possible link between him, E, and the rest of us. They were dressed in such strange fashion. They clearly knew each other. Alright, sure, let's go. You paused for a very long time. What was the deal with that? Where to? He smiled at me. Agreeing to his proposition was putting him in a good mood. Finally, I get to kill you. He answered while we walked to the station proper. I suggest we leave for the station you've explored before. Do you believe that would be a good course of action? I mentally cursed. If I disagreed with him, it would look like I was hiding something, and if I agreed, then he'd find out about what Jasmine wanted to keep from the others. Him figuring it out at this point was an eventuality, I think probably, no longer only a possibility. Even if I chose to stay, he could go there on his own, and that was why it was probably better if I went with him. Maybe it would have been better if we simply told the truth, Jasmine. Now I understand why Jasmine was so paranoid. This man was cunning. More cunning than I thought. Fine, let's head over to the science laboratory. What exactly was in the room you explored with E again? It was an infirmary, but there was nothing consequential there except for something which I will share with you since you are being so agreeable. But you will have to wait until we get to the station. The train is here, so let's go. We all entered the train. As usual, the little chime announcing the train's departure rang, and the doors closed. I wondered if the ones still in the lounge could hear it. Yeah, did we say anything about leaving? Because that's super suspicious. To just, like, roll out without saying anything to the group. That thing was pretty loud. Pro-chain cane station. Security. In the train, we had 2 stations to wait for, so I could ask him some things, if I wanted. Alright, Let's start with the relationship with E. That's the thing I'm most curious about. Are you and E related, somehow? A was searching for his words. That was somewhat rare of an occurrence for him. I suppose you could say we are merely acquaintances. Circumstantial acquaintances at that. We didn't really choose to know each other. The simplest way to explain it would be, I work for the company that has produced the headset and the mask she wears. The 2 of those objects are very complex. That same company has made the pens you have in your possession too. Super useful, am I right? My department specializes in reproduction, wink, recreation, wink, printing, wink, or many kinds of printing, wink, wink. That is why those pens are the way they are. I unfortunately am not allowed to divulge what the purpose of the headset is. Oh, but that seems important. That seems super important. Trade secrets, you know. He put a finger in front of his lips as if calling for silence, and then took out a knife and held it to my throat. I see. The train came to a stop at a station. This wasn't our stop, but we were getting there soon. After a few seconds, the doors opened. After another few seconds, they closed. We remained silent as the train did its routine. The same chime from earlier sang its tune, and then we were off. Brocane Station, Laboratoire. Since we had some time again, I quickly chose how to use it. Huh. I feel like this also is more important. Let's talk about your bag, man. Your bag is the only thing I've seen that hasn't been confiscated by Smiley so far. My phone, my wallet, everything's gone. It's the same for M. What exactly is in there, if it's not too rude? Oh, nothing special. All there is in there are my usual necessities. If I had to assume, I was left with this bag to better help the communication between the people here. Without it, I would have remained the only one who can talk with he. Though it would have been much simpler if he would have taken it away. I'm sure the fact I have more possessions hasn't escaped the eye of many others in the group. It is such a shame. Perhaps they'll choose to trust me less as a result. He sighed and gave me a sad smile, which made him look even older. Because, you know, old people always look sad. I didn't really know what to think of his bag, to be entirely honest. One thing I knew, I didn't like that he had it. There was something in there he didn't want anyone else to find out about. And maybe that's another reason why Smiley let him keep it. To sow distrust, Simon. Finally, the train slowed down. We came upon the station we'd been waiting for. Let's get a move on. It would be silly to make this walk take any longer than necessary, after all. We do have to go back as well. Wouldn't you agree? I agreed, yet I remained uncertain of this man's motives. We both left the train, and just as quickly we went for the lobby. The old man was leading the chase. He was moving rather rapidly, disregarding my pace. It felt as though he'd grown impatient. His manners were less polite than before. I felt it strange how he'd changed so much so quickly. We have things to discuss. I figure I may trust you with this kind of thing, but first I must swiftly investigate this place to be certain of my hunch. Once we were in the laboratory, he quickly examined the room. First of all, I will share with you that I work for a very rich company as a researcher. You could say that company has a goal to better humanity as a whole, but you could also say that that's obviously a lie, because rich companies never work for humanity as a whole. However, I will be straight with you. The company I am part of is doing some illegal activities. Now, I'll pause here a moment to let your shock really sink in here. That's surprising. Shouldn't you want to hide this stuff? He didn't stop moving as he spoke. He shook his head. Of course not, because my role isn't to participate in these experiments, but to, as they say, take out the trash. You can think of me as some kind of internal secret police. There are some branches in this organization that are less reliable. Problematic, to put it simply, if they came to light. Are you like the oldest assassin in the world? Is that what we're getting at here? This is a rather unique location. He motioned to the entire room, but he didn't mean this room. Clearly, this old man meant that the entire refurbishing of the metro was a part of what he was investigating. When I say unique, I don't truly mean it because we had another one very similar to this one somewhere else. He opened some drawers, looking at their contents. I looked over his shoulder, and I noticed that there was a knife rack. Uh-huh, the thing that Jasmine was super worried about? One of the knives was missing. Who could have done that? Not long ago, there was a fantastical explosion which removed that other location completely. Was this the explosion in the New York subway? This wasn't in the plans at first, but that was the result to remove that problematic place. You mean the subway in New York, the thing Josh just said? I am unable to say anything else about it. Breach of contract. At any rate, I am here to bring Smiley to justice, and I require assistance. When we capture him, he will be hailed as a hero. He offered a smile. I could tell that he was genuinely looking for help, but was that because he was unsure about his own chances of success? This was a deal in which I had nothing to lose, though. Okay, but I'll need to know more. I admire your inquiries, but I will be unable to provide you with more details. It is on a need-to-know basis, unfortunately. Otherwise... He leaned in a little more. This whole time he'd been talking very low, and I only noticed just now. Smiley may catch wind of what I'm doing. He pulled back to where he'd been before. Now, I came here because I had a hunch about something that may relate to another object that I found earlier. Of course, at first, I didn't think you and Jay would truly be hiding something from me. The old man took a glance towards the strong door. Crud! He found it! Not that it was difficult to do, since it was pretty plainly in the open. For us to succeed, you are forbidden to keep this kind of knowledge from... Ooh, first time we've gotten this little piece of art here, and... That is because of this. He reached into his bag and pulled out what looked like a strange remote. It had over 26 buttons on its surface, each labeled with a letter. Now that is curious, because this is the thing that we find in that introduction bit that then Jasmine gets killed over, presumably. Near the top was a small screen showing a few asterisks. The man pushed a few more buttons and pointed the remote at the door without a handle. The beep coming from it signaled an error and the screen cleared itself. I don't know how many attempts we have with this, but as I toyed with it earlier, I thought to perhaps enter some digits. Turns out this remote takes 5 of them. Unfortunately, he sighed, as if his lack of knowledge weighed as would the world upon his shoulders. I do not know the password. I believe this room is far more important than you might have previously thought. That is our primary search now. Wait, aren't we searching for the 9th person? Yes, but let's just say that is no longer our priority. Have you found them? I was slightly mistaken. It is not really a ninth person. I have great cause to believe that this remote is the object we're supposed to find. The ninth person probably is... The man nodded towards the strong door. In there? The best hiding place is a room people can't access. I don't know about this. If I had to guess, this tool can be used to open any and all doors you may come across. Look at this door, for example. He reached for the wall and let his hand slowly come down its smooth surface. It has no handle, and yet it clearly is a door with a window, tantalizing us with the contents it holds. This would have had no purpose to be shown if it wasn't something important. May very well be where Smiley is as well, watching on all these monitors and orchestrating our every move. I mentally calculated the amount of attempts one would need to brute force the remote's code. It would be something like 26 to the power of 5. What he said was true, and we had limited attempts. Doing that would be impossible. Of course, as I am sure you are eager to leave, we cannot simply go right now. If you even managed to make your way out of here, maybe that too would have been part of Smiley's plan. Perhaps he intends on framing my organization, which is a beneficial entity, as a malevolent institution that needs to be caught and shut down. I don't know, man. I don't know a lot about your organization, but it doesn't sound great yet. In reality, he is a criminal. Do you understand? I guess, but if we can leave, then I will. Is that fine for my terms? He didn't look too pleased with that, but he abdicated quickly. Very well. I guess those are the best terms I would get out of you. Rest assured, as soon as we find the way in, I will let you go and you will be free. He handed me the remote. I took it with slight surprise. This is my gift for you right now. If you find anything that would let you use this remote by investigating other stations, you would do well to let me know. I leave it with you so that you may check for yourself. I already have memorized what this remote looks like, what its function seems to be, and the engravings on the back. As I held it, I realized there were little dots on the back. However, nothing of it meant anything to me. So is that Braille for E to read? Need to know basis. If it happens, it's important for me to share it with you, I will. Didn't like how he insisted on keeping me in the... Yeah, I mean... For somebody who wants to get me on his side, he sure isn't giving me enough to really fully trust him. I didn't like how he insisted on keeping me in the dark, but also wanted me to cooperate. This was increasingly becoming a one-way deal. But wait, if this is where Smiley is, why would he give us a way to reach him? I honestly don't know. Perhaps in his insanity, he has decided to give us a fair chance. Let us not squander it. At any rate, our business here is concluded. I deduced from your handling of E that you would be most trustworthy individual to share in this endeavor. You should not share any of what I told you with anybody else, even your acquaintances. I have strong suspicions that one of them is Smiley's accomplice. That is to say, a traitor. My eyes widened in apprehension and disbelief. I didn't think Jasmine or Marco could have been allied with Smiley. But even if they know, if everyone knows, wouldn't they be unable to act? Well, think of it this way. If we were all chosen at random, and thus our fate didn't matter, then they might kill everyone else until they can simply restart this entire thing with another mismatched cast of randomly picked individuals. And if the one I suspect to be the accomplice is Smiley himself, then I have no doubt he wouldn't even think twice before killing you, your friends, and everyone else. He put some emphasis on the mention of my friends. He did have a point. Before we go, do you doubt anybody in particular? I thought about the only people I really knew much about, Jasmine and Marco. I knew Marco. He did study in fields of science, so he wouldn't be incapable of setting this whole thing up. But I just couldn't see him in that role. Too much of a buffoon. Perhaps he was a smart buffoon, but a buffoon nonetheless. Jasmine had changed since I'd last seen her before all this. Perhaps she might have been the accomplice. Now, I don't think it's all this simple. Obviously, there's going to be a lot more going on to this, but I will say that Jasmine being in some way complicit to this would make some sense given the really weird train ride thing right before this happens. Like, the fact that she was, like, basically silent during that bit when she's, like, reconvening with friends who she hasn't seen in a while. I don't know. Seemed very weird to me. However, this was only a random guess, and I didn't want this man to suspect Jasmine. After all, there was an equal chance it could have been Ray. He had the physique to play the role of Smiley. He was incapable, angry, and always took sips. By the way, we can look at this more next time I see Ray, but as I was watching the previous episode and I saw Ray's little thing, his bottle that he drinks out of, something about the way that looked, and I can't remember if there was something else that tipped me off to this, but I wonder if that's like medicine or something. Like something that, like, it isn't actually alcohol, but it's something that he needs to take for some reason. I don't know. That's just something I had a thought about. For all I knew, that could have been an act. He was disabled, the twins were young, the chances they were involved in this were remarkably slim. After all, who'd ever heard of a situation like this being orchestrated by a teen or a disabled person? Almost made a joke that would have spoiled a different game, so... No, I don't have any doubts. I'm trying to think about it, but nothing comes to mind. That was my first real lie. I knew about Occam's razor. It was an idea that went along these lines. There are multiple competing explanations. The simplest one is usually correct. The problem was, that hypothesis was that Jasmine was the accomplice. I didn't like that. Let us go down to take the train, then. Before we left, I took another glance at the big door. Beyond it, between the door and the room, was a tiny, very imperceptible set of scanners. It was equipped with them, much like any other exit hallway. What was the meaning behind that? Was this an exit too? I kept it to myself. This meant we needed to get that 9th person, even if A believed otherwise. As we stepped down the stairs, I figured if A was right, and this remote was the way to the 9th person, then those scanners wouldn't make sense. It would be set up in such a way as to require the 9th person to reach the 9th person. Since that's clearly impossible, what was in that room had to be something else. I thought about it while we waited for the train, but nothing came to mind. It was a total enigma. Having said all that needed to be said, our travel back to the lounge was quiet. Are we not going to go to the infirmary? I thought there was something we got to see in the infirmary. What? A is ripping us off here. We came back in the lounge where everyone else was waiting. Jasmine greeted us first. You were gone for quite a while. Many of us wondered if we should just go ahead and keep exploring, since it looked as if you'd gone to do that. Maybe you should have said something, a-hole. I didn't mind being shot by Jasmine this time, but it was still slightly embarrassing. Despite that, I remember what A had told me. We shouldn't share our information. We took a long stroll, what can I say? How about we take a small pause, then head out afterwards? Sounds good by me. Okay, that's fine, but not too long. There's little to do here anymore, and unlike you two, we've been holed up here the whole time. That was just my investigation. This was just my investigation, disguised as an offer to take a bit of a longer break. I needed to keep watch for anything that could point me in the direction of the accomplice, if they even existed. I wanted to find Smiley just like A, but it was still difficult to trust the old man. For one, he didn't trust me with his name, despite knowing mine, did he? At least he hadn't blackmailed me with it. Most of all, I wanted to leave this place alive with my friends. I don't really want to go into the details, but there was a group of people at school who kept doing weird stuff. G was staring at H as if trying to accuse her of something, but I disregarded their little talk about their school disputes. I wanted solid material. I left them alone with Marco and A. Still, the fact I'd been harassed by the cool guys during my own bad time at school might have played a part in why I was this afraid of things. The more I tried to chase the thought of the secret room from my mind, the more curious I grew. I thought about it, anything to take my mind off the other subject. I shouldn't have given it that much attention, instead focused on simply getting out of here, but I had an irresistible desire to know. It was like if you were given a box with a button on top. If you were told not to press it, wouldn't you get the desire to do so to see what would happen? The natural course of action is to not take unnecessary risks, so you wouldn't push it, of course. That's the safest path, and nothing would happen. You'd simply resume your normal life. But there's a ghost that will haunt you from that day onward. If the encounter had been memorable, you'll keep wondering, what if I had pushed the button? Maybe I would have gained riches beyond my understanding. Maybe I would have gained immortality. Maybe I would have gained superpowers. Maybe it's just a button that did nothing at all. Curiosity killed the cat. I knew that proverb. I didn't care for the fixed version that said satisfaction brought it back. This proverb was a warning that if you ran headfirst into your curiosity, you might suffer from it. A bit like, if you learn something, you can't unlearn it. If I didn't check what's in there, it would nag at me eternally, but it was definitely dangerous. Which one was the worst of it? So long as I didn't run headfirst into an abyss of darkness. So did anyone find anything regarding the ninth person? This took me out of my daydream. Right, the ninth person. I glanced over at A, who didn't even stare back in my direction. Keep it cool, man. If we didn't, I'd like to head out now to investigate other places. There are stations we haven't searched yet. That's correct. According to the map the twins have found... He took it out of his bag. I didn't know the twins found a map. Most likely he'd taken possession of it when he spoke with the twins. It seemed A had more success in his investigation than I had. And by investigation, I mean daydreaming for a couple minutes. All eyes on him, he continued. There are a number of stations left to check. Namely, in the western direction, we have 3 stations. The pool, the rec room, which I assume stands for recreation, and the reactor. That sounds dangerous. Indeed. In the other direction, east and northward, we have 2 more stations, the church and the theater. In total, that makes 5, which, even if we split up and cover them all, would leave 1 to be seen. I thought something was wrong with this map. There was a lot more stations than this in the metro. Did Smiley just run out of themes? Man, I've already done like 15. I don't know. This is probably good enough. If each location was themed around a single thing, then maybe that was the case. Perhaps his influence only extended to this much. It's possible that if we're looking for the ninth person, they may have been tasked with our avoidance, meaning they may be on the move as well. That's assuming Smiley spoke to them too, I think. Well, no. Think about it. If they're Smiley, they'll want to avoid capture. If they're an accomplice to Smiley, they would want to avoid us as well. The only scenario where the ninth person would want to be found would be if it was one among us and we are all here. All 8 of us. So your plan would be to have us also move around? Close. I think we should go westward with 3 teams, while the 4th one goes through the stations on the other side. If they keep watch on the one furthest away, then the ninth person would be able to avoid them. Any objections? Nobody spoke. I didn't know what E thought of his plan, but he resumed before I could ask her. I frowned a little. He was moving a little quickly. I thought he might have wanted to personally inspect everyone else to make sure they weren't Smiley or his accomplice. Very good then. Let us form teams. I wanted to go explore a new room, so I figured he'd take E, leaving me to go with someone else. The team on guard duty would most likely involve E, because there would be no puzzle room to solve. However, he requested to go with H, to which G vehemently opposed. I'd rather go with my sister, if that's not an issue. Understandable, but there is an issue. I have come to the conclusion that we would be better off pairing with others we're less familiar with. It might give us insight we would never have gotten otherwise. He flashed a reassuring smile. The twin ended up agreeing. Fine. I get that we're all in this together. If we want to leave, we'll need every bit of knowledge we can get. As long as I don't have to go with the pink witch. Jasmine shrugged at everyone else under that nickname. While G, Ray, Marco, and Jasmine deliberated on who would pair up together, A approached me and suggested something interesting. I believe you should go with E. I know you may want to explore another station, but please keep an eye on her and go through the ones we already explored. She wouldn't be very helpful in a puzzle room, and that way you can make sure nobody forgot to find something, either voluntarily or not. By the time I nodded, the deliberations coming from the other 4 were over. So I'll go with J, then. I got something to ask her. Nothing big, but might as well be then. Trying to find out what links us all here to? Something like that. Now shut up. Bit of a heat rushed to my head, as if I was getting angry. Partially, it was also envy. I did want to go with Jasmine, but I understood the weight of what I knew. I'm okay with it, and that way G can go with M. The two looked at each other. Marco looked extremely awkward. Despite his usual, most likely fake confidence, he was really bad at meeting new people, especially if they weren't in his age range. I mean, that's fair. Then it's settled. Let us make way for the train. Although I suppose our fourth group might want to go the other way, yes? Why's that? S and E have been elected for guard duty while we explore those 3 stations. I clenched my teeth. That's what you decided, you duplicitous old man? Yeah, well, in the end, I wasn't too angry, but I understood him a little better. Traitor. He really likes spinning words in his favor. As long as you don't stick to the train for too long, or else it'll take you somewhere you can't come back from. Once our 3 teams are done, we'll go back and fetch you. Yeah, hopefully that's fine. Let's go already. The earlier we go, the earlier we're out. All of them left, and after brief farewells, leaving the 2 of us alone. In a way, I wasn't too mad about going out with E, though wording it that way was embarrassing on some level. I explained the situation to her since A neglected doing it. It took many papers, and it was long and laborious. In the middle of it, I heard the train come and go downstairs. Finally, I finished telling her everything. Alright, well, we will have to have our journey with E and see where our security duty takes us next time. Some interesting developments this time with A. Definitely don't trust him, but I also don't think he is the true enemy necessarily. But we'll see. We'll see where this goes. Alright, well, until next time on our journey with E, this has been Downstage Gaming. I've been your host, Josh, and I will catch you all next time.